All right, what's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into my channel. My name is Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, coming to you live from Budapest, Hungary. It's about 8:20 p.m. where I'm at right now, and the date is May 22nd, 2024. And today we are on part 3 of our series of reading this book by author, sociologist, educator, anti-racist activist Jessie Daniels, her 2009 book Cyber Racism, White Supremacy Online, and the New Attacks on Civil Rights. Here to learn about why the white supremacist rights are so active online, how they permeate their ideas, what their goals for their ideas are, and what we can do to fight back against it, right? If you are new to my channel, go watch the first part of this series that I did a few days ago. We are in the middle of the book right now, and the plan is to finish this book by the end of the week. So we're reading 2 chapters today. Today we're going to be reading chapter 5 and 6 of this 10-chapter book. I'm looking forward to hearing what people have to say about this book or about the ideas in it, and I'm very interested to reading all the comments as well. Before I start, I want to say, any donation to this channel is greatly appreciated. If you don't know my story, I am a Black American who is studying here in Europe, here with my wife. I will start my semester in the fall at a university here in Hungary, and the tuition is about 2,400 euros a month. And today I paid, as you can see here on the screen, 400 euros, 400 euros to my institution today. And that is not cheap for me. I am a poor man. I am a poor American. And this is how much money I have left until the end of the month, about $116.69. So just letting all y'all know, any donation to this channel is not going to go to me buying new J's or spending it on drugs or women or anything like that. It's going towards my education so I can be a better advocate for our people. I'm going to be studying sociology, hopefully getting my PhD one day and becoming a professor and continuing to learn about these topics, teach about these topics, and talk about these topics in the fight against white supremacy. Anyway, let's get into it. Today is chapter 5, Gender, White Supremacy, and the Internet. So let's start here with the epigraph. Ask others not what a woman's role in white nationalism is. Ask yourself what you can do for white nationalism. Very interesting. That was written by Mist Wraith, who might be an online white supremacist who supposedly is a woman, as far as we know. All right, send money so Simon can finally launch his passport bro career, said Nelson Moreno. I was never a passport bro. I don't want to be a passport bro, but yeah, I've already spoken and written about my thoughts about the Passport Bros. Go check that out on my channel, right? So, by the way, at the end of reading this book series, I will be doing a written response to this text, my review of this text, what I gained from this text. So, y'all be on the lookout for that. And the movie reviews will be coming back very soon, as well as other topics with me chopping it up with Acti as well. Anyway, so ask others not what a white woman's role in white nationalism is. Ask yourself what you can do for white nationalism. Bonnie by a white supremacist. Johari is a former social worker who helped people file housing discrimination complaints in the Reading, Pennsylvania area. Her work apparently enraged a white supremacist. In March of 1998, white supremacist website published by Roy Frankhauser began posting pictures of Johari's workplace exploding amid computer-generated video flames. Johari and her daughter began receiving threatening telephone calls, and Johari found a flyer on her car reading, "Race Traitor Beware." The local police and the Justice Department declined to file criminal charges, citing Mr. Frankenhauser's First Amendment right to free speech. Johari moved first to another town in Pennsylvania, then to Seattle, and eventually to an undisclosed location in order to get away from this ongoing threat to her life and the life of her child. It is important to understand the experience of women like Johari and her daughter who have suffered the real harm of white supremacy online in their real lives. However, women are not only victims of white supremacy online, they are also creators of and participants in white supremacy online. Very interesting that this guy, Mr. Frankenhauser, was able to get away with stalking and harassing this woman. Meanwhile, if you remember from yesterday's live stream, there was a Mexican American student at UC Irvine who sent threatening, evil emails to a bunch of Asian students on campus, and he was the first person charged with like internet hate speech or something like that. And he became a convicted felon under the U.S. federal government. Meanwhile, this guy was harassing a woman and creating images of her house exploding and other people being so impelled by their race hate to leave stuff like race traitor on her window of her car and threaten her and her daughter. But this guy gets to walk free under protection of the First Amendment, right? Goes to show the double standard and the blatant white supremacy in America. Continuing here, the 129,000 plus registered members at Stormfront have created an astounding 389,620 threads. For example, discussion topics, with a staggering 4,883,278 posts. For example, individual entries under each topic. Within this vast area, within this vast arena is a small forum linked off the main page designated for stormfront.org ladies only. The ladies only forum is popular with white women who frequent Stormfront and includes some 159 threads with 3,661 individual posts. The women who post in this forum, such as Mist Wraith, quoted above, are committed to the cause of white pride worldwide, yet it is white men who remain the chief architects of the white supremacy online. I truly doubt those numbers because I think a lot of those numbers are men cosplaying as women, but who knows? I don't know. I made a joke during the first video that there are no women on Stormfront. Maybe I'll be proven wrong today. Let's find out. So the centrality of a white heteronormative masculinity of white supremacy has extended from the print only era to the digital era, juxtaposing Bonnie Johari's experience as a target of white supremacy online and the very real consequences in her real life with the emergence of women only spaces within larger white supremacist sites can illuminate different aspects of gender, white supremacy, and the internet. However, by using these two examples, I do not mean to suggest that we can understand gender by only looking at women. Indeed, as I have argued elsewhere, masculinity is constitutive of white supremacy. This characterized white supremacy in the print only era as it does in the digital era. What I mean to suggest by using these two examples is that, first of all, Johari illustrates the impact in real life and the persistence of the miscegenation theme. Second, the designated ladies only space within stormfront.org illustrates both the growing engagement of women in white supremacy and in life online more broadly, and the male dominance that is central to both. My investigation into these two gendered illustrations leads me to conclude that the print only era of white supremacy featured a more top down, tightly controlled ideological articulation, whereas white supremacy in the digital era, and particularly the involvement of women online, offers more openness and dissent within white supremacist discourse. However, this greater fluidity in white supremacist discourse does not lead to anything like a political critique that materially improves the lives of either women at Stormfront or women who, like Johari, are victims of white supremacy online. So Nelson Moreno says whitey women are very fake, so it's always surprising to see for me when I see their racist side. It shouldn't be surprising to some degree because women at the end of the day are people, and people are prone to cling to power. So if you are a white woman in this world, you have almost every incentive to uphold the system of white supremacy, right? Even though white men and white supremacy as a whole is detrimental and deleterious to women by and large, right? Like what we're seeing in the U.S. with the conservative party trying to roll back abortion rights and attack IVF and birth control and stuff like that. Even try to ban pornography, like some Republicans and conservatives are trying to do in certain states. White women, by and large, still gain a lot from the system of white supremacy. They gain access to jobs, to capital, to education, the protection of their children under the banner of white supremacy. So it's still not surprising to hear that white women would be a part of Stormfront. I just find it very unlikely because most women online are just trying to be, entertained or not be ideologically driven or motivated, like how certain men are. You get what I'm saying? So that's just my opinion on that. That's just my opinion. Now, of course, there are women activists online. There are women who, go online to advocate for certain causes. But, going to stormfront.org does not seem like something. It does not seem like something most women would want to do in their free time. right? Unless they were motivated by some man. That's my opinion. That might be sexist. That might make me canceled. That I don't care. I don't care. I'm just keeping it absolutely real. I'm keeping it absolutely real. There are a lot of white men online who pretend to be women, who pretend to be black, who pretend to be Asian, who pretend to be all sorts of things. So, yeah, that's just my opinion on that. So, continuing here. In this chapter, I examine white women, white men, gender, and sexuality as they are represented on a number of white supremacist websites. With a particular focus on stormfront.org, I include illustrative examples from several case studies, such as the Juhari case, and I focus primarily on stormfront.org. Stormfront is an important case of white supremacy online. Perhaps the case, as discussed in the previous chapter, because it is the oldest and most successful white supremacist site online, and because it is an entirely participatory site in which a multitude of users, both men and women, almost all white and identifying as white nationalists, create and post content. Thus, what I offer here is a preliminary gendered analysis of what white supremacy enacted by both white women and white men looks like in the digital era. My purpose in this chapter is twofold. One, to suggest how white supremacy online might be gendered in ways that are similar to and different from both white supremacy in the print only era and other sorts of online communication beyond the white supremacist sites. And two, to situate white supremacy online within a global context of inequality, particularly along lines of race, gender, class, and sexuality. Go into the comments here. Nelson Moreno says, this feminism thing conveniently leaves women out of the oppression structure. So successful that you think that you only think of white men when it comes to racism. That's very profound. That's very profound. See, I love my comment section sometimes. That is a very profound point because a lot of people don't correlate, the actions or the choices that a lot of white women make as to upholding white supremacy. So when we think of white supremacy, we tend to only think of white men. And by and large, white men are the ones who will, actively try to uphold it because they have the most to gain from it. But that is absolutely very true. We don't tend to think about the women who vote for the conservative politicians that want to, kill all the migrants or or build the wall or ban abortion and stuff like that. We don't think about the white women who support the white men that go out to the Klan rallies and bake cakes for the for the KKK meeting. We don't think about that. We don't think about the white women who cry tears in the courtroom to protect her husband who shot an innocent black man in the back. Like we don't think about that. We don't think about that, but that's very true. That's very profound. Shout out to Nelson. Hand clap for that. Very profound point. Didn't even think about that. So anyway, continuing here, choosing an online identity, gender, race, and screen names at stormfront.org. White supremacy online is a male dominated racial project as it is offline. In the print only era, white men were the primary but not exclusive publishers of white supremacist newsletters. Although white women who qualified as quote unquote pure racially and sexually figured prominently in the symbolic discursive universe of white supremacist rhetoric in print, actual white women played relatively small but still significant roles in the movement. In order to understand the way white supremacy online is gendered, it is first necessary to examine some of the ways the movement is gendered offline. So yeah, basically, from what I understand in that paragraph, they're talking about white women were seen as the central point of motivating the white supremacists, but actual white women were hardly or involved, or at least peripherally involved, tangentially involved in this, right? Because what do the white supremacists always say? We're here to protect white women and white children, right? That's one of their main focal points. Continuing here. So, despite the male dominance of white supremacy as a movement, some estimates suggest that white women may be the fastest growing part of face to face organized racism, with some suggesting that women make up as much as 50% of new members. To the extent that anyone has a stereotype of women in organized racist movements, the image conjured is probably one of a poor, uneducated woman with an abusive family history who has followed her racist boyfriend or husband into the movement. However, in her study of 34 women in the organized racist movement, Kathleen Blee found that there was no single racist type. In fact, the women in her sample were educated and employed, and most were neither poor before joining the movement nor reared in abusive families. While some of them did follow men into the white supremacist movement, not all of them did. The majority of women in Blee's research found their way into organized racism the same way others find their way into movement organizations, by meeting people who were already in those organizations. Once in the movement, organizations. Once in the movement organizations, the women began to self consciously identify as white, thus making explicit a racial identity that is taken for granted by most whites. Many of the gendered aspects of the movement offline carry over into offline versions of white supremacy. While the men in white supremacist groups tend to emphasize a cult of heroes and martyrs, Blee found that the women in the movement she interviewed expressed comparatively little interest in identifying with heroic figures. Instead, they report finding more satisfaction in feeling selflessly engaged in a struggle for what they see as right. They just want to be a part of something bigger. But girl, join a church. Join a yoga studio. Join like a spin class. What the hell? You want to be how do you want to spend your time after work? You want to spend your time after work with a bunch of other Nazis and KKK members, girl? What type of girl are you? That's wild. That's wild. Like, I just want to be involved. Like, what is that? That's crazy. Anyway. Instead, they report finding more satisfaction in feeling selflessly engaged in a struggle for what they see as right. Evidence for a similar gendered phenomenon exists online in the sorts of screen names. For example, nicknames, nicks, user IDs, or handles. Stormfront.org participants choose for themselves. To illustrate this point, I conducted a content analysis of screen names of users who posted on the Sustaining Members discussion board, where participants who made donations to Stormfront.org in 2005 were acknowledged by screen name. Participants who self-identify as women choose names such as Mist Wraith, quoted in the epigraph that opens the chapter, Driven Snow, War Maid, Kinder Kush Kirsch. Say that 3 times fast. Classic Goddess, Aryan Angel, Chaos KKK Kitten, Jesus Christ, and Norwegian 14 Beauty, which I coded as female. Those are men. Those are men. Those are men. No, I can't. Something in me. This is what this see, but this is the thing Nelson spoke about in the comments. Something in me finds it still hard to imagine women on the forums of Stormfront going this hard for white supremacy. Though there are women out there, of course there are, right? Of course there are. So yeah. Anyway, continuing here. Participants at stormfront.org who self-identify as men choose names such as Charles A. Lindbergh, Iron Man 1, Spartan, and Von Bismarck, which I coded as male. Not all of the nicknames are easily recognizable as gender specific. A number of participants select user IDs that are gender ambiguous, and users do not always self-identify by gender. Screen names such as Anglo-Saxon, Prepare, or Unconditioned Canuck I coded as indeterminate vis-a-vis gender. I counted a total of 149 contributors. Of those, 19 had clearly identifiable female screen names, 82 had male screen names, and 48 had screen names that could be either male or female. The pattern that emerges in the choice of screen names by Stormfront.org participants reflects the kind of distinction Blee points out in the face-to-face movement. That is, men tend to choose screen names that refer to and honor heroes and martyrs of the movement, while women mostly do not. The pattern in screen names at Stormfront.org is one that simultaneously reflects the broader gendered structure of society as it constructs gender identity and sexuality as well. This sort of pattern is consistent with other research that finds that these user-created nicks are important in shaping online interactions because they offer an explicit indicator of gender identity and sexual availability. Screen names also signify racial identity in online interactions in general, and at stormfront.org. Online at stormfront.org's racial identity is largely presumed, but there are ruptures in the assumed whiteness of participants. These ruptures are evident in threads, in a thread called "What Inspired Your Screen Name?" In this thread, members are invited by senior moderator Jamie Kelso, aka Charles A. Lindbergh, to share the backstory of their screen names. Screen names are fascinating. How did you dream up yours? Was your name inspired by a philosophy, a private meaning, a historical figure, a humorous idea, mythology, literature, history, a people, your work, your family, or some other idea? This was posted on Stormfront, Charles Lindbergh. Okay. The hundreds of replies that follow in the thread, 1,656 replies and 82,075 views as of March 1st, 2008, reveal screen names chosen to signify national identity and racial ideology, as well as racial and gender identity. For example, a participant that uses the screen name Diablo Blanco 14, mentioned in Chapter 3, describes the origin of the name this way. My name, of course, is Spanish for white devil. I remember Muhammad Ali labeling us white devils, and I thought to myself, that was exactly what we needed to be if we wanted to take our societies back and protect our women. So I turned it into a compliment and a badge of pride. The 14, of course, is for the 14 words. We must secure the existence of our race and a future for white children. My original Diablo ID, which I still have on Yahoo, is Diablo Blanco 92, but it was lost in an earlier incarnation of Stormfront, but remains on Yahoo. The 92 is for 92nd Street and Fort Hamilton Parkway in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, the tough, white, ethnic, very pan-Aryan neighborhood I grew up in. Italians, Irish, Germans, Norwegians, Greeks, Poles, white Hispanics, white Lebanese, where nearly everyone was a racist. Although I'm Southern Italian rather than Spanish, I use Spanish because I wanted to use a Med language to express white Med pride, and more people understand Spanish than Italian, and also as a tribute to some of the way hot and lovely white Hispanic girlfriends I have had. That was posted on. Wow, that was posted. What is that? That was posted like 21 years ago. Wow, think about that. That was posted on May 21st, 2003. And here we are reading this stupid ass post 20, 21 years later. That's crazy. That's crazy. Anyway, I'm going to go into the comment before I get into the reaction to that post. Nelson Moreno says, Black men suffer far more discrimination than whitey and even black women. That's a proven fact. But white women are very comfortable generalizing men in their social media spaces. Also facts. Okay, Nelson is really going off today. You got to get it off your chest, man. Go ahead. Go ahead. Let them know how you really feel. Jesus. All right. So they want to feel part of something bigger. Explain why so many whitey women in bukakis. Wow. Nelson is talking. Nelson is talking. He's talking spicy today. He is really going in. I got nothing to say. I got nothing to say about that. But yeah, very interesting. I spoke about this in the first video I made reading this book. A lot of the southern whites, the Southern European whites who are white supremacists or want to be a part of that subculture, have some of the most have some of the biggest inferiority complexes when it comes to their white identity. Therefore, they go extra hard to play up their whiteness and be extra racist and things like that. It's a shame that somebody thinks it's okay to be racist or they're proud to be racist. This is something that I've gotten in my comment section, unfortunately, from a group of Southern Europeans. The Albanians. A lot of Albanians, unfortunately, come into my comment section and say we are proud to be racist. They literally say this. Of course, their comments get removed. Of course, their asses get blocked because they're not welcome on my channel. But I find that extremely sickening and saddening to hear somebody saying that they are proud to be racist. Before anybody labels Simon as Simon, you hate white people, number one, I can't be hateful of white people because I'm reading the book of a white woman right now. My wife is white. I live in Hungary right now, and I do not hate white people. We want to eliminate white supremacy to create a better society for all people. We do not want to replace it with black supremacy. We do not want a white genocide. We do not want to harm white people. We just want y'all to simply, pardon my French, to stop effing with us, stop messing with us, and stop ruining the planet, and stop hurting your own damn self. Period. That's what we want with the ending of white supremacy, right? So yeah, very interesting. I'm very interested to see what the reaction on Stormfront to this guy coming out as a very swarthy brother from New York, where apparently everyone in his neighborhood was racist. All right, I'm going to jump into the comments here. Nelson Moreno says, white women are the current face of the oppressed. Do you think that is accidental? Are white women the face of the oppressed? I don't. I disagree right now. If we're talking about in the popular culture, in the popular, what the world is feeling right now, the Palestinian people, men and women, are viewed as the face of the oppressed right now. If you're talking about in the Western world, I think, at least in the American context, yeah, Black Americans still hold that up. Black people in general hold up the face of the people who are the most oppressed in society. If you just look at statistics, and if you look at the history as well. Um, I don't I feel like, turning insular and attacking white women for, on one hand, having their feet in two places. On one hand, white women want their feminist rights, the right to, be unencumbered by a man, to not have to cleave to a man for their safety and privilege. But also at the same time, still upholding the system of white supremacy in many ways. I think there is a critique to have there, but I think, by and large, just bashing on white women isn't the right thing to do, in my opinion, because I feel like that's just pitting us against each other when we should be fighting against white supremacy. Of course, a critique has to be had on white women and their role in upholding white supremacy, but just saying, "Oh, white women are getting more shine or importance in a white supremacist world for their struggles." Of course, their issues are going to be, more forefront and, more in our face because they're a part of the system, of course. But there are also some white women who are writers, literally, like Jesse Daniels right here. She's breaking it down, really attacking white supremacy in this book. Gonna go into this last comment from Nelson before I jump back into the text. White men, women bash men all the time. Do you mean white men and women bash men all the time? It's common now. If you're talking about, on Twitter, on stuff like that, yeah. But let's keep it absolutely real. I've said this before. As men, if I want the white supremacists to hold themselves accountable for the history of what their people have done, or the benefits that they gain now from the systems that have been put in place, I also have to acknowledge the benefits that I have as a man, regardless of my race. And to keep it absolutely real, we as men do have a lot to be bashed for to this day. To this day, think about Diddy. Think about Diddy right now. Diddy got away for years, smacking Cassie up and down. All his security guards are coming out the gate saying, "Yeah, I saw Diddy smack Cassie. I saw Diddy smack Kim Porter. I saw Diddy smack his own goddamn mama." All these people are coming out saying they witnessed Diddy, this very powerful, very rich man, smack women all this entire time. And nobody said anything. That's a black man. Let's go to Harvey Weinstein. People knew in an open secret in Hollywood. You wanted to get on, you wanted to get in a big blockbuster movie, you wanted to be a star, you had to jump up and down on Harvey Weinstein's, very small, minuscule pee. You had to do that, right? That society knew that, and they let that happen for years, right? And who knows, whatever is happening right now in people's homes, in popular culture, in the entertainment industry, in politics, where men are abusing their powers over women. So I got to keep it real. If we want the white supremacists and white people in general to acknowledge the privileges that they have, we as men also, in the fight against white supremacy, have to acknowledge the privileges we have as well. You get what I'm saying? So yes, men to some degree deserve to get bashed for all the evil stuff we do to women consistently, right? Let's just keep it absolutely real. And that doesn't make you less masculine. It doesn't make you any less of a man to acknowledge that we have privileges as men, especially over women, when for so many years, women have had to deal with our BS and the brunt of our BS for a long time, right? I'm going to continue here though. So anyway, we were reading the book, cyber racism. We're talking about Stormfront, the Southern Italian, the Southern Spanish, the Southern European Spaniard from New York gave the background of his username on Stormfront and talked about how he wants to honor his Spanish heritage. And let's see what the reaction of Stormfront is. So the lengthy description that Diablo Blanco 14 offers here of his screen name is laden with meaning that illuminates the malleability of the boundaries of whiteness. He identifies his ethnically diverse neighborhood in the Bay Ridge section of Brooklyn as a very pan-Aryan neighborhood in which he situates himself as not merely within the boundaries of whiteness, but also Aryanness. This identification as white and Aryan is doubly ironic given his Southern Italian heritage, which in a different context in the United States would have marked him and his neighbors in Bay Ridge as decidedly non-white. In fact, as late as the 1920s and 30s, most social commentators wondered publicly whether Southern Italians were even capable of ever fully assimilating into mainstream U.S. culture. All right. Onur jumped into the chat. He says, Salam alaikum. Walaikum salam to you, good sir. So, continuing here, by choosing a Spanish language name to express white med pride, Diablo Blanco 14 effectively expands the bounds of whiteness here. Further, by including in his description to attribute to his sexual alliances with white Hispanic girlfriends. Diablo 14 both challenges and affirms white supremacist rhetoric about the prohibitions on interracial sexual relationships. He challenges this by asserting his right to cross racial and ethnic boundaries to sleep with Hispanic women. Yet he affirms the white supremacist notion of the importance and value of same race sexual relationships. He wants to have his cake and eat it too. He wants to be able to sleep with big booty Latinas, but also at the same time say he's a part of the Aryan nation. But he's probably a very swarthy looking, dark hair, dark eyes type man claiming to be a part of the white supremacist movement. The cognitive dissonance with these people is crazy. It's crazy. The lengths people will go to make sure they get big booty Latinas. Guys, I swear that the Cubans are white. Please let me smash the Cubans. It's insane. This is insane. The white supremacists are literally retarded. Literally retarded. Anyway, continuing here. So, where were we? Where were we? So, he affirms the white supremacist notion of the importance and value of same race sexual relationships, along with the implicit message that only white women are attractive. By using all caps to emphasize the whiteness of the Latina women he dates. The underlying reference to white devil, quote unquote, is intended to challenge a white nationalist critique of white racism, while the number 14 signals his identification with white pride. So Diablo 14 is engaged in a complex identity construction through his choice of screen name. Each time he logs in and posts, a total of 7,762 posts from his join date of March 2002 through my last count in March 2008. His screen name appears alongside the post, affirming this complicated identity of race, nationality, region, gender, sexuality, and racial ideology. Man, it's so. I would love to get in the head of this person who is so avowed to hating other people when people he wants to be friends with, the other white supremacists, would hate on this guy, Diablo Blanco 14. Why do some people want to be a part of some groups or some organizations that actively hate them? Right? Some people might say, "Oh, Simon, you vote Democrat. The Democrats hate black people." Number one, I'm a communist first and foremost, so I don't just blanket vote Democrat. But I do encourage you to vote against Trump because Trump is the devil incarnate, and we're looking at fascism returning to the U.S. But yes, I will admit the Democrats and the Republicans in the U.S. political system are anti-black, and they have not been helpful to black people. But I'm not talking about joining an organization like Stormfront or the KKK or any other group like that that actively wants to eliminate people that look like me. But meanwhile, people like Diablo Blanco 14 say, you know whose team I want to be on? The people that hate people like me and the people that I will continually try to impress and overdo to try to get them to like me. That's insane. That's literal insanity. I don't know. Continuing here. So, British scholar Les Back has written about translocal whiteness, that is, the possibility that whites from a range of nations in disparate global regions choose to identify across those boundaries as first and foremost white. There is evidence of the construction of a translocal white identity from Premisil, another participant in what inspired your screen name thread. Premisil, who says that he is from Canada and before then Czech Republic, writes, my username should really be spelt Premisil, but I think that it somehow got messed up one day and I used the spelling. Anyway, Premisil was one of the first and greatest kings of Bohemia, although he is more legend than known fact now. This prompts a much longer and reference post from senior moderator James Kelso, aka Charles Lindbergh, who responds with the following. This is history that I did not know. Thanks, Premisil. Quote, the House of Premisil, also called Premislid Dynasty, first Czech ruling house, founded according to tradition by the plowman Premisil, who was married to the Princess Libuche. The members of the Premeslid dynasty ruled Bohemia and the lands associated with it from about 800 to 1306. The head of the Premeslid house was usually designated a prince or duke, Kinez, until 1198, when Premisil Otakar I raised Bohemia to the statute of the hereditary kingdom within the Holy Roman Empire. Historical records of the early Premeslid rulers are scanty. According to legend, Prince Borivoj is said to have been converted to Christianity by Saint Methodius. Mid 9th century. Bohemia was consolidated politically in the 10th century, and the best known of its rulers at this time was Borivoj's grandson, Vaclav, whose zeal for spreading Christianity in his dominions prompted his murder by his pagan brother Boleslav I, who reigned from 929 to 967. This is the thing. I'm in Europe right now, and one of the things about being in Europe is that every country has like 20 different kings that they idolize and admire. I wonder if like the normal people, because I've never actually sat down and like talked to like the Hungarian people or any other Europeans about their kings or their ancient dynasties and history, but do people actually like really care? Because the thing is, this is like thousands of years of history, and it's hard to even keep track of it. Like King Stephen II from 1642, like in America, we barely care about the founding fathers. Like, honestly, we shouldn't even care about those slave owning racist sexual deviants, those big dick deviants, as Cat Williams said. But I wonder if you're from Europe or if you know somebody from a European nation, do people actually care about like learning about the history of like Premisil or Premislid or something like that? If I stay in Hungary and I choose to get like citizenship here or something like that, I believe I have to take like a history test where I learn about their kings and their ancient dynasties. That's going to be hard as hell for me to do. That's going to be hard as hell. It's going to be hard to remember King Joseph the 14th from 1601. You get what I'm saying? But I don't know. Anyway, continuing here. So what happens here in this exchange between Premisil, currently based in Canada and originally from Czech Republic, and Jamie Kelso, who is American based in South Florida, is that they enact translocal whiteness. That is, these two participants as Stormfront together reinforce their shared white identity across national boundaries, Canada and the United States, by drawing on a historical example from a third nation, the Czech Republic. While some may have configured each of these countries as ostensibly white in the print-only era of white supremacist newsletters, the digital era makes possible asynchronous exchanges such as this one between Premisil and Jamie Kelso. What is happening in these exchanges is the formation of a new identity, a trans-local whiteness, to use Les Bach's term, which transcends national boundaries in favor of racial and ideological boundaries. Gonna go to the comments here. Nelson Moreno says they don't really care about the kings, just one or three that are the most important, like founders. Okay, thank you for breaking it down, Nelson. But very interesting how white people from different places, right? And traditionally, we have to remember, like, for the majority of European history, they hated each other. You know how the white supremacists say, oh, in Africa, all y'all do is swing from trees and kill each other. That's what the white supremacists love to say. All you do in Africa is commit civil wars and atrocities and genocide each other. What did the Europeans do for literally hundreds of years? Literally, European history is blood on top of blood, white blood being shed by other white people. Right? The French historically did not get along with the Italians or the Spanish, the English, anything like that, right? And literally in the last century, they almost tried to exterminate a whole section of them. But very interesting that this translocal whiteness, this unifying white identity online that all of them seem to fall under. Most of it seems to be about, hey, that Czech king that only matters to us in the Czech Republic, it matters to you, neck bearded white man in the in Florida. You get what I'm saying? But anyway, Owner dropped a dropped a €2 donation. Shout out to Owner. Shout out to all my Turkish fans. Shout out to my Turkish family. I got two nice Turkish ladies living with me in the house right now. One of them is my wife. One of them is her girlfriend. I've been hearing a lot of Turkish in this past few days. Uh, in the past few days, a bunch of coffee has been drunk and then left in the cups. So it's been a very interesting week, and that's also why we haven't seen any any movie reviews. But shout out to Honor for the donation. Once again, all donations are going towards the Simon Tuition Fund. For anybody who doesn't know, Simon Hill keeps it trill, is trying to go back to university at 33 years old because I want to be smarter, I want to be better, and I just dropped 400 euros today. I know it's really grainy on the screen. I dropped 400 euros for my university, and tuition is about 2,400 right now. I got about $900 on 900 euros on my balance. So looking forward to going back to school, but y'all help out and donate any way you can. Oner says, oh, really? Married to a Turk. See, Oner, you're late to the party, man. You got to go on my homepage. Check out the video I made with my wife when we got married. I got married in Marmaris, Turkey 2 times. Yes, I got married 2 times. And actually, 2 days ago was my anniversary. 2 days ago, if you notice on my channel, I got married on May 20th, 2022. May 20th, 2022. So I've been married now for 2 years to my beautiful wife who is from Turkey. She's in the other room right now. So y'all send like a happy anniversary to me or Acti on Twitter or something like that. All right. Anyway, continuing here. So the women who participate in the What Inspired Your Screen Name thread also cross national boundaries in favor of racial and ideological identification as white, yet the posts by women in this thread are markedly different from the posts by men. In the following post, White Rose explains her screen name this way. I picked this name because I love roses, especially white ones, symbols of love, purity, and friendship. I'm proud of being white, and I love my English Saxon heritage. The national flower of England is represented by the rose, depicted as either red or white. One of the most beautiful cities in England is Yorkshire, which is also the city of the white rose. The name also sounds very English to me. All right. So jump into the comments right here. Honor says, yeah, I'm late. I just saw the Albania video for him a long time ago and just joined. All right, well, welcome to the party. Don't be upset because I am a black man who keeps it absolutely real. My name is Simon Hill, keeps it trill. And if you don't know what keep it trill means, it means keeping it true and real. So while I did enjoy my time in Turkey, I did experience a lot of anti-black racism there. And I talked about that on my channel too. But also on my channel, I showed beautiful experiences I had in Turkey. So once again, the thing is on my channel, people take me talking about racism as a personal attack on them or their nation, when really it's only me sharing my experience. So Honor, hope you enjoy my content. But really, my content is really kind of only meant for a very small, select group of people. It's really going to be educational. I'm not really doing a lot of travel content here, but run through the back catalog if you want and stay tuned. All right. So Nelson Moreno jumped in. He said, Whitey is going extinct, so they're super scared now. Avery Adams says, we in this bitch. Shout out to Avery. But yeah, the thing is, while the white birth rates are going down, and a lot of people, unfortunately, are like cheering for that. A lot of white people are like cheering for that. No, not a lot of white people. A lot of people who are anti-racist are cheering for that. What goes up can go back. What goes down can go back up, right? The white birth rates might be down all across Europe and America, but it can go back up, right? And while the black birth rates in Africa and other places in the world might be going up, it's not something to think that it can consistently go up, right? Did the Bitcoin price reach 1 million net yet? No, of course not. So we're going to see ups and downs with the birth rates, and whiteness is forever expanding, right? It's pretty soon. I'm pretty sure in my lifetime, if the white birth rates continue on this trend by the end of the century, Europeans will start calling the Turks fully white. I agree. I watch this. Watch how this happens. Watch how this happens. Watch how it happens. By the end of this century, all these nations in Europe who are saying the Muslims are coming, the Turks are coming, all these Americans who are talking crazy about Arabs and stuff like that and about Muslims and Palestinians, they're going to start saying, you know what, they're really white. They've always been white. In fact, they've been the whitest. In fact, in America right now, they like, if you are from the Middle East, you can mark on the census that you're white. You get what I'm saying? So yeah. Anyway, my beautiful wife, Acti, jumped in. She says, happy anniversary, baby. I love you so much. Best husband ever. Oh, I love you too. I love you too. And yeah, they started talking in Turkish, so I don't know what's happening here. Y'all continue that conversation. Anyway, so The women often describe their screen names on Stormfront in terms of beauty, in reference to their own appearance or to a beautiful flower and city, as White Rose does here. Like the men posting in this thread, White Rose is doing race by enacting a white identity that supersedes national and geographic boundaries. This post by White Rose is actually quite verbose compared to others by women in this thread. More commonly, women post using fewer words tend to begin their posts with some form of self deprecation and are less likely to reference a larger historical or ideological point to describe why they chose their screen name. For example, they think, for example, this post from Isabella is typical. I'm frightfully boring. I couldn't think of anything neat, so I signed up with my middle name, Isabella. Post dated, wow, think about that. That's literally almost what? 21 years ago. 21 years ago, May 23rd, 2003, this supposed white woman jumped on Stormfront and left this comment, and here we are reading it, showing you that anything you post online will stay on there permanently. So y'all be careful what y'all post online. Y'all don't be like Simon Hill, keeps it trill and talks out your mouth all reckless, right? Because this will come back to haunt you. Anyway, Nelson Moreno says, I have no idea. Happy birthday, Simon. Yet you are the one giving gifts today. Aw, y'all are too nice. Where's all the white supremacists? Where's all the racists, man? Where y'all at? Where y'all at? No, since I started laying down rules, everybody's been nice in the comments. This is actually cool. But I hope this content is educational. And y'all let me know what y'all think, man. Do you think there are really a lot of white women online being racist? That seems so out of character for like women to go online and just be like hella racist, unless they're motivated by a man or a part of some like larger, group, and she's like been born in it and sworn in it. You get what I'm saying? I don't know, but anyway. Note that she begins her post with a defensive claim that she is frightfully boring, and then reveals that she used her own middle name. The post from Isabella draws no response from the moderator. Yet when a man posts that his screen name is in fact his real name, some months later, senior moderator Jamie Kelso steps in to praise the man for his encouraging sign and urges other participants to do the same. Charles A. Lindbergh, post dated October 8th, 2003. Another woman explains her screen name, Pixie, in these succinct terms. Mine is not real original, it's my nickname. Pixie posted on June 26, 2003. Okay? So, yeah, I have no idea. So, Kushi says, indeed, TikTok is full of it, especially against Islam. Yeah, the Islamophobia online is really a big problem. Since I posted my videos going to masjids and stuff like that, all these people have been saying horrible things about the prophets, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There are people who come into the comments and I, mark them out automatically because they're talking about horrible things about the prophet, that he did this and that and stuff like that. And once again, I don't take too many comments seriously because there are a lot of Russian bots online and there are people who are just trolls as well. But still disturbing to think that people are so hell bent on hating on Islam that much. It's crazy. Anyway, Nelson Moreno says on social media, those Nazi spaces are mostly male. If that helps. Okay. All right. I think they are mostly male, right? Like most of the internet is male dominated, right? But needs to be talked about. Needs to be talked about if these women are participating, right? Right. Continuing here. Like Isabella, Pixie is defensive about not being quote unquote real original. Part of the defensiveness seems to involve not being overtly ideological in their choices of screen names, but this does not explain all of their reticence. When one woman with a strongly ideological screen name, female 14 words, posts to the thread, her reply is exceptionally terse, direct and to the point. Female 14 words, post dated July 2nd, 2003. Here she economizes on words by using the keyboard to create an arrow that points in the direction of her screen name, which displays on the left. Even though she has a strongly ideological screen name, the gendered structure of online interface interaction serves as a constraint on a longer post. Screen names are an important site of racial and gender identity construction at Stormfront, as well as an indicator of the male dominance of white supremacy online. Screen names suggest some of the ways that white supremacy has shifted from the print-only era to the digital era. White supremacist discourse is no longer contained by the one-way top-down communication strategy of printed newsletters published by a few, mostly male leaders. White supremacy supremacy in the digital era has expanded to include participation from many people in disparate geographic regions who are actively engaged in crafting a translocal white identity that privileges race and racial ideology over national identity. The gendered quality of screen names, as well as the gendered structure of online communication, illustrates some of the many ways race, nation, gender, and sexuality intersect for participants at Stormfront. Basically, what I'm getting there, what I'm understanding from that is that a bunch of crazy people a bunch of crazy people are trying to find ways to identify with white supremacy for their own sick, twisted psychic benefit, right? Now, I don't want to be dismissive of people who are actively on Stormfront as just crazy people because, these people are highly motivated, and highly motivated people, whether they are crazy or not, are dangerous, right? Highly motivated people are dangerous. And I would not be surprised if many of the mass shooters who targeted black people, Latino people, Muslims, all visited Stormfront at least once. Peyton Gentrin, Brandon Tarrant, all the people who walked into masjids, walked into supermarkets, walked into synagogues and aired that thing out with AR-15s and all sorts of pistols and stuff like that. They at least visited Stormfront. They all went to Hajj to Stormfront at least. So I'm not just going to dismiss them by calling them stupid or crazy. But it is some degree of craziness and stupidity to want to identify with an ideology or a group that literally hates your existence. I could not do it. I could not do it. So, continuing here, for Stormfront ladies only, liberal feminism and the white supremacy online. Okay, Nelson Moreno, this is your time to shine. They're talking about liberal feminism and white supremacy online. This is where you get to go off, buddy. All right, the fact that there is a ladies only discussion board at stormfront.org speaks to the gendered structure of online communication more broadly than just white supremacist discussion boards. Online communication in mixed gender settings generally tends to disadvantage women, and it is often the case that women and girls in mixed gender online groups create a space of their own. Women in mixed sex online discussion groups post fewer messages and are less likely to persist in posting when their messages receive no response. Even when they do persist, women receive fewer responses from others, both females and males. In addition, women do not generally control discussion threads except in groups where women make up a clear majority of participants. In part, this lack of influence by women in mixed sex groups explains why women only online groups are common. Yet explicitly designated men-only groups are rare. This gendered pattern to online communication is evident in the item about screen names discussed above, and it explains the emergence of the ladies-only forum at Stormfront. The white women involved in organized racism online, like the women in studies of white supremacy offline, appropriate the discourse of white feminism to define their participation in the movement. The range of topics is familiar and incorporates a surprising amount of liberal feminist rhetoric. The thread started by women in the ladies only forum is remarkably banal. Many of the topics listed here could just as easily be found on a forum at ivillage.com or an afternoon talk show. The ladies at Stormfront are interested in health and beauty and dating and marriage and children and losing weight and feeling safe when home alone. There are also overtly racist, hit on by Negroes, oh God, and anti-Semitic, Elliot Spitzer, another immoral Jew, threads, but these are much less common than the more pedestrian concerns of many women's lives. Of the 159 threads, 27% address some issue connected to women's roles as wives and mothers. 11% have to do with some version of health, and 8 concern issues related to beauty. 5%. Why are you wasting space? Why are you wasting space on Stormfront talking about makeup and all that sort of stuff? Y'all need to be talking about crashing out, right? Ain't that what y'all here to do? By the way, very ironic that women want to be, saying to themselves, I'm talking about these white women in particular, they're saying to themselves, we want to be involved in the movement. We want to be leaders and at the forefront, but you're a part of a group, the white supremacists, who will say women should stay at home. Y'all should only be barefoot, pregnant, pop out babies like it's the Handmaid's Tale. You get what I'm saying? Like, what are you, how do these people reconcile these two things in their mind, right? How do they reconcile being a part of a group that literally wants to say you should not have freedom as a woman? Your only job is to produce white children. What is that? Can somebody explain? Can anybody explain how people come to that conclusion? But Nelson Moreno said, ha ha ha, what did I say? You might be proving yourself right here. The text might confirm this. Anyway, in a thread within the Ladies Only Forum, a participant with the screen name Concerned Kaya joined date July 2007, 54 posts, started a new thread by posing this question. Should abortion continue to be legal? Her initial post mixes the overt racism of white supremacist rhetoric with a challenge to the pro-life rhetoric that abortion is murder. She writes the following. Here is a supposed white woman on Stormfront giving her take on abortion. I realize the commonly held view that abortion is murder and that white women should be having children instead of aborting them. However, black women are much more likely to have abortions than white women. It's as that joke goes. What do you call an abortion clinic in Harlem? Crime Stoppers, quote unquote. LOL, she says. Those fetuses that are aborted are oftentimes better off dead. This is a white woman on Stormfront. A white woman. Once again, anybody can be anything online. Anybody can be anything online. But let's say, hypothetically, that there are women who agree with this, or that a woman did say this. Those fetuses that are aborted, those black babies, are oftentimes better off dead, she says. Sorry, but considering the environment that most of them would have been raised in, it's usually true. Plus, if I were ever raped by a black guy, I definitely want to get rid of what was growing inside of me. I don't think that abortion should be used as ordinary birth control, but under a lot of circumstances, it seems justified. What's your thoughts on this? This is what Concerned Kaya, a white woman who was on Stormfront, posited to the group. Very. The thing is, Simon here is pro-choice. I, disagree with abortion as a personal choice, but in society, people should be able to make the choice. And the thing is, Concerned Kaya and I might be allies to some degree, that we want people to have access to abortion. But her reasoning to get there is that she doesn't want to be able to stop the baby of her hypothetical black rapist from reproducing within her. Very sick that people think this way, but this is not an outlier. For anybody who's going to say in the comments or listening to this in review, oh, these are only a few people online, a few weirdos. If you go looking for racism, as some people say in my comment section, you will find it. I turn on Twitter and see this sort of shit every day without even trying. I'm trying to find out about Diddy, and then I get, a bunch of people spamming the N-word. I go on my YouTube channel trying to just look up comments, and I get spammed the N-word and all sorts of racial slurs my way. You get what I'm saying? Nobody deserves to be called racial slurs online, and the racism online is very prevalent and palpable, especially if you are black online. If you are actively showing your face or identifying as black online, you have experienced anti-blackness online, right? Anyway, continuing here. Nelson Moreno. So they would keep the rape baby from Whitey. It's going to grow into a yeast infection, LOL. Nelson is on fire today. Nelson is talking spicy. Yeah, it's crazy, right? So hypothetically, and by the way, I heard about this. There was a group of white supremacists who were planning to go around raping white women to force them to have children. This is a group, I forgot the name. I believe a lot of them got arrested, but you can look this up. It was a news story a while back, but I forgot the name. There was a group of white supremacists who were actively plotting in like message boards and stuff to go around in major metropolitan cities in the U.S. and rape white women and force them to have kids. That's how badly they want those birth rates to go up. Anyway, Cushy says that is crazy. It is crazy, but unfortunately, it's crazy that a lot of people think that way. Continuing here. Here, the rhetoric of an earlier white supremacy is transposed to the digital era, unchanged from the print-only era in many ways. The view of reproductive rights through a racist lens that Concerned Kaya and others express here is little different than the kind of rhetoric I found in printed white supremacist newsletters. What shifts in white supremacy in the digital era is that now this sort of racist rhetoric is no longer simply ideology that is distributed in one direction, from movement leaders to movement followers, but instead is interactive and participatory. Following after this, 35 additional women read Concerned Kaya's initial post, and in reply, many of them ignore the racist rhetoric and respond in rather straightforward liberal feminist terms, as in the following two. Yes, end of story. So they're doing yes, girl. They're doing yes, queen. They're yes, queening the white supremacist lady. Yes, Queen. Spit your shit. Spit your game, talk your shit, Queen. That's crazy. Yes, end of story. Comrade Ditka, dictator. Dictator post dated February 19th, 2008. And this: I'm firmly pro choice, and no abortion is not, nor should it ever be considered a method of birth control. Okay, very interesting. We have liberal, feminist, white women who want abortion because they're scared of getting raped by black men, or they hope more black women have abortions. Sick, sick, sick. All right. Of course, this is not the end of the discussion. Following several posts by women who identify as pro choice, a participant with the screen name Amber Dawn 88 writes: Abortion cannot be kept legal, so stop making excuses and realize abortion for what it is, which is murder. But by the by, pro choice is not the opposite of pro life. The opposite of pro life is pro death. Then another participant quotes the original post from Concern Kaya and writes the following: I fully agree with you. I do believe that abortion is and should be the woman's right. She should have the ability to abort the fetuses if she is unable to care for it, or has HIV, or is raped, etc. Nobody should have to live with the fact that they had a baby just because the law prevented the early term aborting of the fetus. Bottom line, it's the women's choice. She has to birth the baby, take care of it night and day, and if she is unable to do so, either by mental or physical status, or if she has HIV or some other kind of terminal illness, she should have the right to abort for her and her baby's own well-being. That's crazy that a racist white woman on Stormfront literally wrote the thing that I would type. That's crazy. That's crazy. See, there's so many overlapping things, and people are so multifaceted. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? A racist white woman on Stormfront literally generally wrote the same thing I would write, talking about abortion. Anyway, in this post, One Bones 3 articulates a stance that is indistinguishable from mainstream liberal feminist rhetoric in support of women's right to control their own bodies, when she writes, abortion is and should be the woman's right. Indeed, she recognizes the unequal distribution of child care and housework in her assessment, and that the hypothetical women in her example must, quote unquote, birth the baby and take care of it night and day. While One Bones 3 concedes some ground to pro life rhetoric when she alludes to late term abortion, i.e., the law prevented the early term aborting the fetus. Even with this concession, by overriding message, is one that is consistent with the liberal feminism of organizations like NOW and Planned Parenthood. The debate in this forum continues on with a volley of back and forth posts, such as this one, which immediately follows One Bones 3's post. Abortion is murder, plain and simple. It's blaming an unborn for mistakes that aren't theirs. This was said by Chica for GW, for George W. Bush. Anyway, Nelson Moreno jumped into the comments. He said, these women are all over feminist spaces, but they hide behind progressive language. They are becoming hate spaces. Nelson, you got to give examples of where women are secretly being hateful in the broad daylight, uh, but they are supporting progressive causes. I think these are the inverses. This is the inverse. The white women on Stormfront are actively a part of the reactionary, racist, fascist wing of this world we live in, right? But the women you're talking about, I think, are a part of the, liberal, more progressive side of things. But you're saying that they hold secretly the views of the women on Stormfront. When I don't, I find that hard to believe. I find that very hard to believe. You got to give some examples. If you're talking about just white women being Karens or general, pain in the asses, that's one thing. That's one thing. But if you're talking about white women secretly wanting black women to have abortions, but they claim to be progressive and stuff like that, I find that hard to believe. I think anybody who wants to have abortion be legalized wants people to have the choice to do it. This is the thing. If you are a religious person who says abortion is wrong, abortion is murder, how about this? Don't do it. Don't do it. Tell your kids not to do it. Try to convince people not to do it. But you can't take away people's right because of your religion. Not everybody is Christian. Not everybody is Muslim. Not everybody is Jewish. Nobody cares about your book or how you interpret your book. Your book does not dictate society. So why should we live under, your theocratic view of reality? That's sick. That's sick. But I don't think that the women on the left in general uh, are secretly crypto white supremacists, racists, right? Uh, until they reveal themselves, right? Like Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, who had a Freudian slip and said, black kids in Harlem don't even know about computers and stuff like that. You get what I'm saying? Until they have their Freudian moments, let them be. Let them be. Anyway, continuing here. Where was I? So the conversation, or more accurately, the competing monologues, is very similar to exchanges found outside white supremacy groups. After the initial post in this thread by concerned Kaya, few participants take up the racially charged implications of the original post until 4 days after the initial thread began, when another participant writes this. So here is another white supremacist replying to the idea that abortions should be legal because if white women get raped by black men, they need to have an exit strategy, right? So here's the thing: abortion should be legal in non white countries who are populating the earth so fast and at unsustainable numbers. They are crushing us in every which way. It is different with the white race, however. I am firmly pro life. For those people justifying abortion in America because black women get them too, what you are saying is that abortion should stay legal because black females get them too, but at the expense of unborn white children. No young white life is worth 100 black abortions. Am I wrong? Abortion has taken a toll on our worldwide numbers. One out of every two pregnancies in Russia ends in abortion. Do you know how many millions of babies that could have been? Think of all the Italian, English, Norwegian, and Swedish children growing in the womb who have been reduced to medical waste. Naturally, the father of the baby gets no quote unquote choice. His feelings don't matter one bit. Feminism at its best. She can go off and have your son/daughter vacuumed out or poisoned with saline with the snap of a finger. Have you ever seen the photos of saline-induced abortions? Sorry, that's not what I want for my race. Interracial rape, okay, it was a crime and can be taken care of in the hospital on an emergency basis for the mother's health, quote unquote. And incest, how often does that really happen? A hospital can take care of it. There is no need for abortion mills in every city or suburb across America and Europe. Abortion should be severely curtailed for us, and alternatives like adoption, white babies are in huge demand, should be considered. We have an obligation to protect the youngest of our race because who else? Well, that is my opinion. White Bread, White Bread posted this on February 24th, 2008. Great way to end Black History Month, right? Like right at the tail end, you got to drop a lot of racism in it. You know what I was thinking about the other day? I want to adopt like a blonde hair, blue eyed baby from like Sweden, right? And I'm gonna just like raise him on Malcolm X and W.B. Du Bois and Marcus Garvey and just have that boy radicalized and turned out. Yeah, that would be great. I would love to do that. But seriously, so this person is trying to create this scenario, but his scenario doesn't even make it seem possible. Like there is no way in America, unless you really do have that fascist white supremacist takeover of America, that you could legally say, okay, you know, we're going to allow abortion only in the case of interracial rape, where the perpetrators are black men. That could never happen in America unless we really go full fascist, unless we really go all the way extreme, right? The thing is, in America, you're either going to have this, you're either going to have abortion legalized or not, right? Or highly curtailed or more accessible, right? You cannot base it on race anymore. Like the white supremacists fail to realize that they are losing ground. Like they are unable to do that. That they are unable to continue to try to just be blatantly aparthidic. I hope I pronounce that word right, if that makes sense. Jumping into the comments here, it's not the racism, it's the hatred. I said hate spaces because they bring hatred. They are not doing feminist sociological critiques, just gross generalizations. Nelson, you got to give examples of these women who are out here giving gross generalizations of people. Anyway, um, very, very interesting. Birth rates, birth rates, birth rates. I do not get why people are so obsessed with birth rates. I don't get it. I don't get it. White people have always been the minority, and yet we live under a global system of white supremacy. The Jews are only a few million people, and yet they are, very powerful and prominent. They have their own country and everything like that. They're able to dominate in a lot of ways, right? Smaller numbers, smaller ranks means more people who are driven and focused for survival, right? So, if anything, the white supremacists should be okay with the number of white people decreasing, because this might only increase the race consciousness of people and create translocal whiteness. But I am not trying to be a theorist or a supporter or some type of strategist for white supremacy. I'm just making that clear. So, so when they say that men are rapists, Nelson Moreno says, "Do you think they're thinking of Whitey College Boy?" No, no. Though I would be interested to ask any white woman who is a racist, who opposes abortion, uh, would you be okay with, being raped by a white man and then having to carry that birth to full term and raise that child, right? Like, is that something that you think will be okay? I don't know, because that sounds crazy to me. It's hard for me to imagine any woman saying, "I oppose abortion, even if I was raped by my own father or my own brother, I would still have that baby because that's how much I oppose abortion." That sounds insane to me, literally insane. But I can't get into that mind state. Con- Continuing here. Here, white bread directly challenges the implicit feminism in the other's support for abortion and more forcefully questions the feminist rhetoric of pro choice when she asserts that the father of the baby gets no choice, then charges that this is an example of feminism at its best. This post also addresses the racial questions raised at the beginning of the thread by concerned Kaya. Despite her broad anti abortion stance, white bread advocates for abortion in non white countries, which she perceives to be crushing us in every which way. Such rhetoric clearly reaffirms white supremacy. Then she puts this white supremacy in stark numeric terms by asserting that no young white life is worth 100 black abortions, an assessment that white lives are 100 times more valuable than black lives. All right. So going here to the comments, Nelson Moreno says, examples, just visit any space online where a large amount of women join together. But what are they saying? If they Once again, Nelson, I think you and I fundamentally disagree about women's discourse about men. You view their critiques, women's critiques on men, as somehow unjustified, as if we didn't create whole religions where we said women are dirty if they're on their period and they got to sleep outside. Women cannot be priests who speak to God. Women cannot be prophets who speak and give the messages of God. Women have to stay at home and they cannot work. We didn't create whole societies where for generations women were basically supposed to stay inside and be our personal slaves, regardless of our race as men. We have treated women literally as slaves for the majority of human history. You don't think that, women have any right to complain when we literally smack them on camera and kick them in hallways because we're rich multi-billionaires who can rent out an entire floor of a hotel and then buy the videotape to hide the evidence. Diddy, we're able to get away with that as men, but you act like women coming together in a space complaining about our big dick deviant behavior is somehow them hating on us. That's the thing. We have to acknowledge this. I'm trying to make this clear for everybody. Let everybody listen here. If we want the white supremacists to acknowledge their privileges and the wrongs that they have committed as a people and the advantages that they have as a people, right? We also, as men, have to acknowledge the privileges we have because that is a part of upholding white supremacy as well. Come on, guys. It's simple. It's simple. Yes, there are unfair critiques that women, some radical feminists make by and large about men. But if you were a woman, wouldn't you have a lot to say about these niggas? Let's keep it real. Let's keep it real. If you were a woman and you saw your sisters get smacked, were sexually assaulted more times than you can count. Every time you walk outside and you wear something that shows a little bit of skin, you got people harassing you and calling you out of your name. You wouldn't be tripping too. You get what I'm saying? Like, seriously, guys, have some empathy for the other half of humanity if you are a man. You get what I'm saying? All right. And yes, that extends to white women as well, right? Continuing here. Nelson Moreno says in the comments, white women are destroying men in most aspects in society in the West. Facts, just check the stats. I got links. Okay. But from their discourse, they sound like black people living in the 1920s. I can't with you, Nelson, man. I can't with you, Nelson. So because women are gaining advancements, because women are gaining advancements, they're not destroying men. Last time I checked, the Pope was a man, and the next Pope will be a man. The next Dalai Lama will be a man. Most presidents are men. Most of the richest people in the world are men. Most of the people who are the CEOs and titans of industry are men. Most of the people who own homes in America are men. Most of the people who own homes around the world are men. Most of the people who own land around the world are men. Everybody who has their button on the nuclear option right now is a man. So seriously, what are we talking about here? This is like the same argument the white supremacists make. They say, "Oh, the blacks are catching up. The blacks are coming. The blacks are taking our jobs. The Mexicans are taking our careers. The Indians are taking our spaces." All this sort of stuff. This paranoia. We as men have nothing to fear. We have nothing to fear from women. Because let's keep it real. Let's keep it absolutely real. The male chauvinism of our world today still exists. Okay, we are still by and large, crushing women in every single way. If you don't believe that, tell me how Diddy was able to get away with smacking Cassie for all those years. And all those men and women around Diddy saw it happen. And nobody said a damn thing. So I don't want to hear anybody say like, "Oh, women are hating on men unjustly." There are some women who do. But by and large, we as men have a lot of big dick deviant behavior that we have to answer for. Let's keep it absolutely real. Okay? All right, it's not hard to do. Anyway, I'm gonna jump here, continuing with the text. What white bread concerned Kaya and the other participants are negotiating in this ladies only should abortion be legal discussion thread is what feminism viewed through a white supremacist lens means for the women who participate at stormfront.org. In particular, they are creating space for both ardently pro-life and vehemently pro-choice articulations of white supremacy, thus effectively expanding the appeal of white supremacy beyond a narrowly conceived constituency. In contrast, white supremacist discourse in the print only era was created almost exclusively by white men who published this in newsletters that left no room for negotiation or for women's voices. While it is certain that women read these newsletters in restrictive ways, the discussion boards at Stormfront open up the production of white supremacist discourse to multiple voices and perspectives. In this gendered white supremacy online, enacted here by white women, the one-dimensional view of abortion in the rhetoric of white supremacy of the print only era is broadened through a participatory engagement with the movement's discourse made possible by the internet. This sort of negotiation around what feminism means when viewed through a white supremacist lens appears in a variety of different threads in the ladies only forum. For instance, in a thread called 1943 Guide to Hiring Women, a participant links to a not white supremacist blog that carries a scanned document that appears to be from the July 1943 issue of a magazine and features a laughably sexist list of 10 instructions on how to hire and manage women. The women at stormfront.org are in on the joke intended by posting this dated article. Several women come through this thread and agree with the feminist message inherent in poking fun at such an article. It is clear from this thread and others that the women of stormfront.org include many women who work outside the home and for whom such work is central. One woman uses the screen name future underscore lawyer to designate her occupational aspirations. See, I'm telling y'all, man, the white supremacists are everywhere. You got lawyers. She might be a judge by now. Think about that. Think about that. They are everywhere. Imagine you found out your judge, your prosecutor in the court posted on Stormfront. That's why this website needs to make that's why we should have identification online for certain people. Not only so we can smack the shit out of certain people who talk crazy online, but also so we know the lawyers, the police, the judges, everybody who's on these racist websites, they need to be exposed. Anyway, one woman who uses the screen name future underscore lawyer to designate her occupational aspirations, although most of the women appear to hold jobs that they find less than fulfilling, as indicated by a thread called My Work Week Sucked, where women share stories from their work lives. The women participating in these discussions share a taken for granted acceptance of work outside the home and an expectation of being hired paid, promoted, and treated equitably. This reflects the embrace of significant portions of liberal feminism, and yet they resist other dimensions of liberal feminism, such as identifying as ladies and subtitling their forum Sugar and Spice and Everything Nice. Despite this embrace of such elements of liberal feminism, the women posting at the Ladies Only Forum continue to feel powerless in relation to the men in their lives in various ways. Very interesting. Go into the comments right here. Nelson Moreno says, I accept critique to the patriarchy and shared behavior between men. There's plenty of it. I'm a feminist and I usually still read it. But, for example, they say that misandry is not even possible. The sexism they suffer is very different than the racism that we suffer. That's why women are surpassing men in most aspects in just 2 decades. Black people don't talk like black people in the 1920s, but why do women in these spaces? Another justification to openly play down very high rates of male loneliness and suicide. Uh, is misandry possible from women? I would argue yes. Yes. The same way that I can say, yes, an individual black person can be racist. Misandry, if I understand right, if I remember the definition, and Nelson, correct me if I'm wrong, misandry is the hatred of men, right? Like misogynism is the hatred of women, right? So some feminists, according to Nelson, say that it's impossible for a woman to practice misandry. But I would say it's possible for anybody to practice anything individually. Yes, an individual black person can be racist because there are individual black people that hate usually other minorities or other powerless people in the system of white supremacy. There are very few black people that really hate white people. Let's keep that absolutely real. There are very, very few. In fact, I can say in my life I have never met a black person that hated white people, and I have never felt in my heart a hatred for white people. So the thing is, the only racist people, black people I know, have been black people who have said horrible things about Asian people or Jewish people or Latino people and stuff like that. Of course, some people throw the word crackers around, like me. Love that word, cracker ass cracker, get doing cracker ass things. Of course, but that word doesn't have as much power as the N word. But an individual woman, of course, can practice hatred against men, right? If you have a female boss who, sexually assaults you as a man at work, yeah, that might be a practice of misandry. If you have a female boss who, says disparaging things about men all the time in the office and makes it a point to make you as the man stand out and be, ridiculed, right? That's misandry, right? But by and large, there is no systemic misandry in America. And even in the example I gave, I had to give the woman power. I had to make it explicitly clear she had power because men, in a lot of ways, don't even need, power that's vested into them by a company or a society to practice misogyny against women, right? We see a woman driving a fancy car and we say, oh, yeah, that's probably her husband's car. Or woman is walking home late at night, man runs up behind her, grabs her, takes her in the bushes and does what he does with her. Of course, right? That's a form of misogyny as well, right? Uh, so yeah, the inherent biological differences between us make the misogyny we practice more systemic, more all encompassing than the misandry individual women can place. Plus, also, we have a system built on centuries of civilization where men are still at the top. Y'all show me where in the Bible they say women and men, can have equal standing in the church, in the system of religion and stuff like that. Y'all show me where in the Quran they say women can lead prayers and all that sort of stuff. None of that. None of that exists, right? So, yeah. Going here to the comments here. Nelson Moreno says no, because the misandry they engage in is very much tied to traditional notions of masculinity and patriarchy. They believe that male suicide is just some individual's problem. No, I would say that, male suicide, canceling yourself as a man when we have so many advantages is one of the craziest things to do, right? Uh, and of course, a lot of the times the pathologies we do in society come from um, a lot of the pathologies of individuals sometimes come from the failure of society, right? I would say that, yeah, as a man, if you are committing that, taking your own life or something like that, uh, that might, of course, be mental health, right? You might literally have mental health issues, but there also might be systemic failures of life choices or the society that are causing you to go down that path, right? You lose your job because of NAFTA or something like that. You lose opportunities and stuff like that because of the changing of society or capitalism. Yeah, that might push a man over the edge. Uh, Nelson says, because the misandry they engage in is much more tied to traditional notions of masculinity and patriarchy. Are you saying that the misandrist, the women who hate men, or the way they practice hatred towards men, is that they disregard the suicides of men because they view men as being more inclined to commit suicide because of their individual habits or ways? Is that what you're trying to get at? Am I understanding right? I'm trying to understand your point here. Anyway, make that more clear for me. Make that more clear for me, because I've actually never thought about this in depth, because I do not view misandry against men as a big systemic problem. But break it down for me. So let's go here. Within the ladies only forum, the most popular thread with 391 individual posts and 12,957 views is an item called Powder Room Confessions. The title of the thread suggests a nostalgic period when restrooms were euphemistically referred to as powder rooms, and women engaged in a gendered practice of exchanging information away from the surveillance of men. Some of the confessions involve racist acts or encounters with people perceived to be non white, but the vast majority of the posts in this item run to the mundane and cover routine confessions about watching television shows and movies that qualify as guilty pleasures, and about acts such as eating entire boxes of cookies consumed in secret, childhood shoplifting, and revenge taken against deserving men. In this post, one woman confesses to the way she left the job. Years ago, one of my bosses was trying to screw me over, wanted me to do the work of supervisor without the pay of a supervisor. I gave my 2 weeks notice, and that made him so mad that he told me I should just leave right away. Later that evening, I drove into the parking lot and took the personalized sign above his parking space. It still hangs on my wall. Okay. Okay, Stacy. Oh, you're so bad. Okay. Anyway, here, Sue Peace is clearly in a subordinate position at her job, and rather than negotiate a raise or a new position to address the inequity she encounters, she quits. And to take revenge rather than confront her boss, she steals his personalized parking sign late at night, stealing a trivial but symbolically important memento from the workplace is an act of employee sabotage frequently committed by people who feel both aggrieved and powerless. The focus in Sue's piece narrative in the context of Powder Room Confessions is on one of her bosses who was trying to screw her over, suggesting both a series of similar sorts of petty, unfair male bosses and a lack of awareness of any sort of political consciousness about the structure of gendered inequality inherent in a segmented labor force. Thus, while women posting on Stormfront embrace some elements of liberal feminist rhetoric and share similar expectations about work outside the home, that it implies, like many women, the material reality of their lives remains constrained by gender inequality. Jumping into the comments right here. So, going here to Nelson Moreno. Nelson says, in their misandry, they uphold patriarchal notions all the time. They believe that men should be providers, are losers if they're virgins, etc. They believe that male loneliness and suicide is an individual problem because they see it as revenge, and that men should be strong and pick themselves up. Okay, I feel like if any woman says that, they are not actually feminists. I don't see how they could identify as feminists, or at least my understanding of feminism. Um, because I believe feminism at this point, whatever wave we're on right now, is saying that, these gender norms both hurt women as much as they do men, right? So the idea about traditional masculinity, that men should be strong providers and be, sexually experienced by the time they meet the woman they love and that sort of stuff. I think a lot of women who are actual feminists and think about this very deeply would say all of those things are wrong. I think, Nelson, you're talking to like the bad girls of feminism, or you're talking to the girls who, you know, got link trees to their OnlyFans, but also feminist in their profile bio. I think if you're talking to those OnlyFans feminists, the weed smoking feminists with the tattoos on the lift women, like those type of feminists, I think those are a different beast. You get what I'm saying? Um, Anyway, believe that male loneliness and suicide is an individual problem because they see it as revenge and that men should be strong and pick themselves up. Because they mistakenly believe that men are like a hive mind that oppressed them through millennia. They think it's our fault that we are affected by patriarchal notions. Okay, to some degree, Nelson, we as men do operate on a hive mind, the same way the white supremacists do. The white supremacists, even if they are not card carrying members of the KKK, even if they've never visited Stormfront, a lot of white folks, by and large, are okay with the oppression of black folks. They're okay with the bombing of Vietnam. A lot of white folks are okay with bombing Afghanistan back to the Stone Age. A lot of white folks say hell no to reparations for black people. A lot of white folks say, well, slavery wasn't that bad, or my ancestors were enslaved a lot of times. A lot of them get on code. So, yes, we as men are on a hive mind status too, because a lot of us say, man, these bitches ain't shit. We repeat shit all the time that sounds wild problematic. We say these hoes ain't loyal, bitches ain't shit but hoes and tricks, all that sort of stuff. For a long time, men generally, by and large, agreed a few centuries ago, if your wife is acting up, you gotta put her in her place. You gotta give her a good old Diddy Cassie smack. So yeah, we as men do operate on a hive mind. There are some beliefs that permeate amongst men. You know, the locker room talk, grab her by the pussy, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, we as men sort of operate in a hive mind type of way too. Yes, we do. So I don't get where you're going at. Yes, we as men did operate by and large to oppress women for centuries. Okay, if we're gonna have the same critiques of the white supremacists, we gotta have the same critiques of us. And yes, they equally apply. But if you disagree with that, I don't get how you could say that that we live under a system of white supremacy, because it does need people that actively or implicitly uphold the status quo and are a part of the hive mind and are on code. You get what I'm saying? Uh, yeah. The thing is, if anybody is watching X Men '97 analogy incoming. If anybody's watching X-Men '97, I forgot the exact name, but one of the big bad characters of the first season of X-Men '97, this guy created, the Sentinels, right? But he created a new type of Sentinel. He basically created Sentinels that would kill mutants whenever a switch went off. So basically, regular civilians, whenever they got the call, got the switch, or a mutant was nearby, they went from a regular human to a Sentinel and then just started attacking the mutants in all sorts of crazy ways. That's how white supremacists, by and large, uphold the system of white supremacy. All white folks are not racist. All white folks are not a part of Stormfront or any sort of organization, but they know when certain things happen in society, they turn into sentinels very quickly. They say, well, my ancestors were enslaved. Well, a long time ago, we all were slaves. Oh, well, slavery wasn't that bad, or it was a long time ago, or you just need to get over it. They throw out every single rhetorical weapon that they can to fight back against us having a solid critique of white supremacy and why we need to change it as a system. We as men do the same thing. When women start talking about the systemic oppression that they still face today, we say, well, you know what? It's not okay for women to hit men. I mean, for men to hit women. But what did Cassie have in the bag? uh women shouldn't be in certain jobs because it's better for a man physically to do it, or a man is more likely to do it better, right? Or I would be okay with voting for a woman president just as long as she has certain masculine characteristics, right? Don't come at me shrieking or have a high voice sounding like my wife who annoys me at home and stuff like that. So listen, man, we're all sort of like sentinels for the things that we are biased against or biased for. Does that make sense? I hope that made sense. But anyway, y'all should go watch X-Men '97. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard. I checked it out. Very dope series. Got me even watching the old X-Men again. You get what I'm saying? Anyway, continuing here. Continuing here. The gender inequality that the women posting at stormfront.org experience extends beyond the workplace to include intimate heterosexual relationships. While many women express satisfaction with heterosexuality, as in the thread "The Sweetness of Married Life," begun by Sue Peace, Many others articulate a different view. In an alternate view of heterosexual relationships expressed by the women at stormfront.org, men figure in the women's lives as inattentive, unfaithful, sometimes abusive boyfriends and husbands. One woman describes a wave of revenge on an abusive boyfriend that is similar to Sue Peace's clandestine sign stealing. I was in a crappy abusive relationship up till last year when I finally got away, so I got small acts of revenge. I put dirt in his food, sand in his side of the bed, cut up dog roll very thin, and put it in his sandwich, and lots of other things. It gave me great pleasure to watch him eat this stuff. Never mess with the person who cooks all the meals. Ha 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 ha. Little Miss Evil posted. Okay, wow. Okay. Uh, this narrative of revenge mixed with the intimacy of food preparation is a familiar one, and like the sign stealing, suggests a serendipitous act of revenge carried out by someone who is relatively powerless, who gains a sort of power in retelling the story. Another participant affirms Little Miss Evil's post by responding, ha 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 ha. And the banter in the virtual powder room continues with others' confessions. A few hours later, another woman posts this confession about her unfaithful ex-husband. When I found out that my ex-husband was cheating on me, I stopped cleaning the toilet. About a week later, before he came home from work to get his things and leave permanently, I used his toothbrush to scrub said toilet. I never told him. Gross. Wow, gross. Here, the woman who goes by Untainted Truth gains a sort of victory in retelling this story, in which she was both humiliated and relatively powerless, but managed to humiliate her ex-husband from a safe distance. I have to ask, is this anti-white behavior? Because these white women, I assume, are not married to big, handsome, chocolate, sexy brothers, right? They're married to Conrad and Taylor, right? They're married to white men, but they're harassing white men for, trying to repopulate the white race because they're cheating on white women with presumably other white women, and then possibly getting those other white women pregnant. So then are they, hurting the white supremacist cause? You get what I'm saying? I, is that anti-white if you are a white woman in relationship with a white man and that white man cheats on you and you scrub his toilet that's full of piss and poop with his toothbrush? That sounds anti-white behavior. That's more than I've done to a white man. These white women have hurt more white men than Simon Hill keeps it trail. These white women sound pretty racist. They sound like they hate white people. Anyway, gonna jump into the comments. So Nelson Moreno says, we have behaviors that we are socialized with. They have been perpetuated from us by a long time, obviously. But that's a simple understanding of it that lacks intersection and understanding of culture. Uh, Patriarchal notions are a ideology that we all grow up with. Your suicide is your fault because your gender has created harmful ideas before you were born. It's not acknowledging male privilege. Okay. Uh, the thing is, Nelson, just to grapple with what you're saying, anybody who says your suicide is your fault, technically it's kind of right, because suicide literally is the killing of the self. So nobody else can make you commit suicide. You pull the trigger, right? You put the knife in your neck or something like that. And by the way, if any of you are suicidal, please go seek help. Call a number, listen to that Logic song with the number. I forgot the name, but play that song, get some help, get off of my live stream. But yeah, I'm gonna just say, I'm gonna just say that if you anybody who says that men's suicide is because of the society that they created, that's a sick way of looking at it, and I disagree with that. But that person is not a feminist. Nelson, don't get so caught up in like some extreme, crazy, pink-haired, blue-haired radical on Twitter, whatever she says, and think that's feminism. That's not. That's just a wild Russian bot. Okay. Avery Adams says, Conrad and Taylor, bro, I'm dying. I know both people with those names. That's the thing, man. But if somebody were to harass white men like the way these white women do, wouldn't that be considered anti-white behavior? I don't know. Continuing here. Where were we? Where were we? So, like the other women, her revenge is exacted through a domestic chore that she continues to perform, and she takes pleasure and indeed perhaps ensures her own safety in not telling him. like the sign-stealing revenge of Sue Peace and the food preparation revenge of Little Miss Evil. The woman posting as untainted truth's exact revenge in secret and gains power in the relative safety of a ladies only confessional. The next day, the woman known as Little Miss Evil is back and responds to Untainted Truth's toothbrush confession with this post. Ha 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 ha. I so did that as well. But I thought people might think said. And Made in Ireland adds to the chorus when she responds, really? I thought all of us love when women get revenge. I know I do. Okay, these girls are white supremacists, yes, queening each other because they brush their husband's toothbrush in a shitty toilet. This world is crazy. The internet is not a real place. This is not real, man. All right. Yeah, they both date white women, man. You gotta, man. If you you get a white woman, man, your toothbrush gonna be a little brown at the tip. You might got a little funk at the end of your tongue because you done, brushed the thing that cleans the cleans the porcelain. Anyway, continuing here, Simon. I'm not some anti SJW YouTuber. I'm not prone to exaggerating or women hating. But what I'm talking about is obvious facts that if you frequent female social media spaces, you will see. I believe you, Nelson. Nelson, you win. Nelson, you win. You win. The crazy radical feminists on social media who who we cannot verify are women. Once again, we don't know exactly who everybody is online. But Nelson, I believe you. You win. You win. There are radical feminists online who say wild stuff about men, like men's suicide is our fault. We are responsible for, every bad thing that ever happens to every man, and they can never be hateful towards men because they don't have the power that we have as men. I agree with you. But that's what I thought before. Any crazy idea you can find online, like we're reading in this book, women who want abortion rights to be existent in America because they don't want black men to rape white women and get them pregnant. Uh, Swarthy Mexicans who hate Asians because they want to fight for the Aryan race. Um, Damn near brown-skinned Latinos from New York who say that they grew up in an pure Aryan neighborhood. Any crazy idea you can think of is online. So yeah, Nelson, like in these female social media spaces, you'll hear some crazy stuff, right? But let's remember, like, take the internet with a grain of salt. Uh, and a lot of people online are LARPing. They are LARPing. They are faking the funk. They are not real. They are not real. Anyway, I'll continue here. Uh, these confessions from the women posting at stormfront.org suggest an acknowledgement of a gendered pattern of behavior on the part of men in their lives, as well as an acknowledged lack of power on the part of the women. Yet the confessions fail to achieve a fully realized feminist critique because they lack any sort of connection to a larger political analysis of either the men's behavior or the women's position within society as women that makes them vulnerable to these men. In the powder room, the confessions are merely personal, not political. Although the women draw strength from each other's confessions, they remain locked in a relatively powerless position within the gendered structures of both the online forum at Stormfront and the broader society. Still, this kind of discussion within the context of white supremacist discourse at stormfront.org represents a significant rupture in the smooth, unvarnished representation of powerful white masculinity. In the print-only era of white supremacist newsletters, such representation of white masculinity goes unchallenged, whereas in the era of participatory media in which all users create their discourse, the fissures of white masculine power are exposed. All right. Nelson Moreno jumped into the comments. He said, when I complain about racism, they say it's just Russian bots. They said they called you a Russian bot, Nelson. They called you a Russian bot. They said that you're secretly Sergey from Vladivostok. That's funny. That's funny. When I complain about racism, they say that it's just Russian bots. Don't fall for that talking point. People are becoming more hateful online in general. I agree with you. Not everybody is a Russian bot. I agree with you. I agree with you, Nelson. But every crazy opinion does not need to be And no, and I know that sounds crazy coming from me when I say, there's so much anti-black racism online, and a lot of it I scroll past, of course, but it still bothers me that so much of it is out there, right? I do not think man hate is big out there like the way you say it is. Misandry is not as big of a thing, right? We as men, right? This is like, imagine, guys, I was white. Imagine I was white, and Nelson, you were telling me that anti-white racism is rising in the world, and I have to pump your brakes and say, listen, Nelson, we as white men, as your white brother talking to you, if I was white, Nelson, and you were white, I would say, brother, we still got all the CEOs, we still got billions of dollars, we got all the gold bricks we stole from Africa, we got all the nuclear weapons, all the baddest women across the world want us. We as white men pop up in Thailand, and the girls instantly fall to their knees and want to peck the peckerwood. You get what I'm saying? We as white men got this. So Nelson, like you're saying, like, no, for real, there's real anti-white racism out there. I saw it on Twitter. I would say, buddy, look at our presidents, look at our nations, look at what we're still doing to Latin America, to Africa, to Asia. Buddy, we got this. The whites will be on top for at least another 1,000 years, right? That's what I would say to you. You get what I'm saying? Avery Adams says people have been more hateful. I don't see none of it on my timeline. It's too colored. Wait, I thought he was white. All right. Listen, man. The thing is, Avery, you might have like a more entertainment focused thing, or just, like more just black Twitter stuff like that. I'm following like, political discourse and stuff like that on Twitter, and also just on YouTube in general. Like my algorithm is all messed up. So I'm going to see different things. The crazy thing about social media, we all see different things. We turn on the phone and you get a totally different feed than I do, right? So we're getting fed information that the algorithm thinks that we like, right? And because a lot of the times on Twitter, I'm doing like research and also learning and stuff like that. And also on YouTube as well, I get fed some stuff that really disgusts me. And also, as well as being a public figure online, I get the comments, and you've seen it too in my comment section, people coming into the chat calling me the N-word and attacking me and my wife and threatening my life, stuff like that. So Nelson Moreno says, I get enough racism from just casually surfing. Now I get hated progressive spaces. F that. F them all. I won't stand for it. Nelson, you going crazy. This man going crazy. He's going crazy. Cushy said, you're speaking facts, man. Your words hit hard. Thank you, Cushy. Thank you, Cushy. Racism and sexism within the patriarchy are very different. The discrimination unites us, but there's it's different social phenomena. Okay. Let's finish up this chapter, chapter 5, heterosexual miscegenation and queer sexuality. Oh God, there are gay folks on on Stormfront. There are gay folks on Storefront. Can you imagine that? All right. Avery Adams says, yeah, the first time I see it is on your streams. It's crazy. I follow mostly women. Okay. Avery, your mom's face is white. Yes. Oh God. No, you guys don't go at it. Oh God. No, you two are about to fight. Nelson, don't do it. Don't do it. I wonder if a moderator can erase another moderator's comment. That's crazy. Y'all going crazy. I'm going back into the text. I can't fuck with y'all. Anyway, controlling sexuality is a key feature of white supremacy. And to better understand how this dynamic works online, I need to first provide some background on how the heterosexual miscegenation and queer sexuality were represented in the print-only era of newsletters. A core feature of white supremacist discourse of the print-only era was the sexual dominance of white men over others, of white women to be sure, as well as controlling images and discourse of the sexuality of black men and black women, and of Jewish men and Jewish women. A trope in extremist discourse and in mainstream American culture, particularly in the 19th and 20th centuries, was the danger and allure of sex contact between black men and white women. The twist to this meme, when viewed through a white supremacist lens, is that such alliances, for example, miscegenation, are viewed as part of a larger Jewish-led conspiracy to both degrade the white race and simultaneously distract whites and blacks from Jewish attempts at control. Along with the fear of heterosexual interracial contact, the pages of the print only era newsletters also contained an asymmetrically gendered view of racialized homosexuality. The rhetoric that expressed concern about queer sexuality took up relatively small but ideologically significant space within white supremacist discourse in print. Specifically, rhetoric about male sexuality focused rather narrowly on bodily penetration, and white gay men were regarded as emasculated race traitors for their supposed willingness to be penetrated. In two line drawings of opposing pages of white supremacist newsletters, a white man stands triumphantly over a black man as he anally penetrates him with a Confederate flagpole. In another image, a white gay man described as an AIDS ravaged. Both these images and the surrounding text, sexual dominance and white masculinity are inextricably linked. Uh, all right. Okay. Okay. Okay, these guys are going at it in the comments. I'm not getting it, but I'm just reading the text, man. Trying to finish up this chapter. So, in the print only era, homosexuality was also frequently linked to Jewish identity. Lesbians in the pages of the newsletters were universally configured as Jewish and as feminists. In keeping with the conspiracy theories of Jewish power, lesbian Jewish feminists were represented as threats to the purity of white womanhood, as temptresses who might lure otherwise heterosexual white women into a same sex relationship or perhaps indoctrinate her with feminist ideas of gender equality. A threat no less sinister. Either way, the formerly pure and racially loyal white woman would be spoiled for the white supremacist cause. The brief sketch of This brief sketch of gender and sexual ideology in white supremacist discourse is one that was crafted by a handful of white men who published newsletters that sought to promote this ideology. In the digital era, and specifically at Stormfront, these views have been challenged, extended, and rearticulated in new ways made possible by the participatory quality of discussion boards. Unlike printed newsletters, where a select few decide on one particular version of the ideology and print that in the participatory medium of discussion boards, each individual participant writing as the at the boards is reading, evaluating, and reinterpreting white supremacist discourse for him or herself. At the same time that the shift in print and news and new media has occurred, there have also been a series of social and political developments that have altered the discourse. First, the rise of a global network society, and with it, the global transfer of people, goods, and information across national borders has meant that there are simply more and greater opportunities for international contact. Second, there is a greater acceptance of interracial relationships and families in U.S. culture and society as a whole, including interracial adoptions, which are part of the global transfer of people, goods, and information. And along with that, a significant increase in the visibility and political power of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer LGBTQ people, not just in the United States, but globally. These two issues, interracial marriage and lesbian/gay rights, have dovetailed, sometimes quite uncomfortably, in the rhetoric of same sex marriage. Some advocates for marriage equality have drawn an analogy between laws prohibiting same sex marriage and those that prohibited interracial marriage. Thus, the combination of a changing social and political world, along with the rise of a new media, have altered white supremacist discourse about interracial relationships and queer sexuality in the digital era. Okay. Looking into the comments. Okay. Okay. Okay, y'all are going crazy. Y'all are going crazy. All right. Okay. All right. Yeah, y'all have that discussion. I am not getting in that. Y'all are going wild in there. I'm not getting into y'all's drama and whatever y'all talking about. So, uh, continuing here in the book, there are new, unexpected, and complicated expressions of white supremacist concerns around interracial contact and homosexuality at Stormfront. In the white supremacist imagination, interracial relationships remain a central concern and are now joined by an almost equal concern about homosexuality. Evidence for this is clear in the proportion of threads and posts dedicated to each subject. Using the search function built into Stormfront, I searched for terms related to interracial relationships and homosexuality sexuality. I then counted the number of threads returned on each of the search terms and calculated a mean number of hits. Threads containing the search term for each category. The mean for interracial terms was 576.5 items, and the mean for homosexual terms was 411.4. Interracial relationships remain a concern, but what precisely constitutes interracial is up for negotiation. As in the example of Diablo Blanco 14, discussed above in the section on screen names, he counts himself as not merely white, but Aryan, despite his southern Italian heritage. And he dates Latina women whom he describes as white Hispanic. Thus, a relationship that might be termed interracial by some is recast by Diablo Blanco 14 as one that stays within the boundaries of whiteness and upholds the standard that prohibits race mixing. While the question of who is and is not white comes up for discussion at Stormfront, there seems to be little doubt about who is black, and as this is regarded as both immutable and plainly evident visually. It is interracial relationships involving blacks, and especially black men and white women, that remain a central concern. This centuries old preoccupation of white supremacists have expanded to new digital terrain, as in threads called MySpace advertises interracial sex. I told y'all, the white supremacists, they wake up every morning and say, why does my life suck? And what is the black man doing with his penis? In this thread, started by forum member White Garden, he expresses grave concern about a banner ad at the social networking site MySpace.com. He refers to the site advertised interracialromance.com, quotes from the advertising copy about the service for people who enjoy interracial relations, and then writes, truly disgusting. The filth should be removed from the internet. Again, anyone age 14 and over who registers on the site can see these ads. Special note, all the pictures I've seen on the site so far are of white women with amazing face and body with black males. Oh, God. Okay. All right. Y'all are going crazy. Y'all are going crazy in the comments, man. Why y'all beefing, man? Y'all shouldn't be beefing with each other. Man, this is a place to show black love and black unity and black intellectualism. All right. So, anyway, wow, Nelson, you trolling hella hard. You trolling hella hard. Y'all going crazy. Oh, Nelson, I think you've proven that you're black. You know, I think you've proven it, but we still haven't seen who you are. We still don't know exactly who you are, right? But anyway, my guy Josh, pardon, Josh, who I interviewed on my channel, he's texting me. Sorry about the interruptions like that. But anyway, other forum members join in the discussion, each adding their own take on how disgusting they find black male sexuality and reaffirming white supremacist prohibitions on interracial dating. While there is nothing new in this anti-race mixing ideology, the digital era does suggest new forms of expressing both white supremacy and resistance to it. Here, the copy slash paste function Here, the copy slash paste function allows the White Garden to copy advertising text paid for by interracialromance.com, displayed on myspace.com, and pasted into stormfront.org. In so doing, he effectively expands the reach of white supremacist commentary to include these other online spaces. In contrast to his reactionary judgment, the mere presence of the dating site interracialromance.com and even myspace.com suggests a significant move away from societal norms that prohibit relationships across color lines. And global networked connections make such relationships in interracial families even more likely. Thus, both the dating site interracialromance.com and stormfront.org are engaged in a contested struggle, staking racial claims on the internet, albeit on very different sides. All right. I will DM every my. Oh God, Nelson, you wildin'. That's a violation. That's a code violation. We ain't homophobic over here. And by the way, Nelson, I believe you've made comments before that you like big black butts on men or something like that. So Nelson, I've also got the hint that you're gay, which is okay. There is nothing wrong with being gay. I am the furthest thing from homophobic here, and I've advocated for gay blacks on my channel before, right? And the thing is, saying that you're going to send a man a dick pic is a wild violation. That's a wild violation. That's like what I did to Intelligent Hood Genius, saying I was going to marry him and stuff like that because he was talking about acting. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, yo, he kept on. Oh yeah, he kept on. Where's Kevon? We found him. We found him. But I would make. Oh god, dog! I've set a bad precedent. Nelson is Kevon undercover. Y'all wildin' in the comment section. This is crazy. This is crazy. I'm just trying to get through this chapter, but Nelson has been going crazy today in the evening. But this is hilarious. This is hilarious. This is hilarious. Oh God, I'm glad y'all are hanging with me through this long ass chapter. Let's see how many more pages we got left. Because I think I'm only going to wrap up chapter 5 today. Chapter 5 is very long. Okay. We might actually have to break this down in a few parts, because I actually got to go to work in a few. Chapter, yeah, this is to 108. And I believe we're on page like 97. I would have to like speed run through it. We might have to pick up on this later because of that. All right. Let me see where we last left off. All right. Where were we? All right. Kevon birthed Avery, but he ran away because Avery was born. Oh no! Don't say that. All right. Don't say that. Don't say that. Cushy said, when will you go live again? I go live every day in the afternoon, usually for about 2 hours as I read this text, chop it up with people, read comments. I go live, possibly tomorrow I'll be live around 4 or 5 p.m. Hungarian time. So, yeah, that's when I'll be live again. But I'm trying to pick up where I left off. Nelson, I'm not talking to someone behind an American made show. Yeah, man, like, listen, it's okay to hide your identity, man. But yeah, anyway. But y'all are crazy. Saying that you're gonna send a man a dick pic, and like him, like you guys have spoken before, like you guys have spoken before. We had a whole long discussion about Drake and Kendrick on Spaces. You get what I'm saying? Like Nelson, I don't know where this is coming from. Okay. Oh wow. Oh wow. Okay, this is getting out of hand, out of pocket. Violations. Violations on violations. This is not cool, man. Y'all supposed to be brothers, man. I thought we brought y'all together. You get what I'm saying? Like I thought we were all, one thing. I thought we were click tight. I thought we were click tight, man. Anyway. anyway. Um anyway, I'm gonna continue here. All right. I'll be a different era. Okay. Yeah, we were on this part because we were talking about interracialromance.com. Yeah. So I'm gonna continue reading a little bit more. Yeah. A lot of the stuff people say online is just for shock value. I think Nelson's just going for shock value right now. Okay. Anyway, along with shifts in discourse about interracial relationships, there have been profound changes in the discussion about queer sexuality within white supremacist discourse. To be sure, homophobia and virulent anti-queer discourse remains features of white supremacist ideology at places like Stormfront. People who identify as LGBTQ are routinely referred to as disgusting and freaky, and all manner of bad behavior is attributed to gay identity. Alongside this hate filled rhetoric, a new, more expansive version of white supremacy is being articulated by forum members who, while not openly gay or openly supportive of LGBTQ equality, are nevertheless quite reserved in their judgment of homosexuality. This rupture in white supremacist discourse appears in a number of threads that pose a question, such as one thread simply titled Homosexuality. The person who initiated the thread wonders, what is it that makes homosexuals bad for the WN, white nationalist cause? Another thread poses a similar question: why exactly is homosexuality wrong? A forum member responds with this: homosexuality is not ideal because it doesn't produce white children, and its male versions tends to spread disease. But homosexuality is a part of the white condition. There have been loyal pro-white homosexuals who have found ways to contribute by donating lots of money to pro-white causes. Far too many whites aren't having children, yet singles, including homosexuals, are freed up to work for the cause in ways families, men and women aren't. I think a healthy white society would not encourage it and would rightfully seek to marginalize it, but not criminalize it or do violence to those so inclined. Interesting. The response here from Hugh Lincoln sounds almost moderate compared to the universally hostile rhetoric about homosexuality in the era of printed newsletters. Hugh Lincoln's statements here about his willingness to consider the possibility of incorporating pro white homosexuals into the cause is further evidence of the way that white supremacy in the digital era has changed. In addition, the strong connection between lesbian and Jewish identity seems to be missing, or at least much less prevalent than in print. Whether or not this represents a significant shift away from intertwined homophobia and anti Semitism in the digital era, or simply the everyday invisibility of lesbians in discussion of homosexuality, remains an open question. What seems clear is that rather than the one way communication determined by a handful of movement leaders publishing newsletters for movement followers, the participatory forums at Stormfront allow for a multiplicity of white supremacist voices, and at least some of those voices express acceptance of a vision of white supremacy that includes openly gay members who are white and support the cause of white supremacy. All right. I think Nick Fuentes is gay. And that says a lot right there, because there are still people who are going to follow Nick Fuentes, even if he is watching like tranny porn, even if Nick Fuentes is openly streaming gay porn. Nick Fuentes is gay. A lot of white supremacists will still accept it because they don't actually have a coherent ideology. It's just about, hero worship. It's just about their death cults. It's just about, hating others and feeling like they're a part of a group. All right. Let's continue here. So, consequences of gendered white supremacy in real life. White supremacist rhetoric online can have very real consequences in real life. But you know what I'm going to do? I hate to say it. I hate to say it. I might have failed a little bit because I got so caught up in Nelson's trolling in the comments. But this is a crazy live stream. I enjoyed this live stream, but I got to get back to work. It's about 10:25 where I'm at right now. I got a lot of things to do today. So we're going to pick up here in the middle of chapter 5. Chapter 5 is a long chapter. Consequences of gendered white supremacy in real life online. Hopefully, we'll also finish chapter 6. So, yeah, we'll pick up here in our next reading. This is a very engaging, very entertaining live stream. Nelson says he has anger problems. I'm sorry, Avery. So now he's like, trying to cop please. All right. So anyway, Avery says, "See you next time. No distractions." Nelson says, "I love you, bro. Y'all are hilarious. Y'all are hilarious." Shout out to Cushy. Shout out to Avery Adams. Shout out to my guy Onur. Shout out to Onur for the €2 super chat. Every time I get a super chat, it goes into the tuition fund. Y'all try to support a young black man going back to university, trying to get his studies on here in Europe. I'm gonna start blogging about that. That should be interesting for my channel. Y'all stay tuned. We're going to continue reading Cyber Racism by Jesse Daniels until we finish the book. We're on page 100 out of 275. Stick with me. Y'all be easy, and peace.